Alright, welcome to PUBG Labs, and today we have a different sort of a segment for you, and it is political podcast, where we actually talk about stuff like current issues, some political issues. So, yeah, and we have a guest segment on the panel today, and his name is Luke. He'll be one of the experts for the current issue.
Yeah, it's Luke here. Jaewon just introduced me as a political whatever expert.
Nope.
Not quite an expert, just seems like a quite nice squad we've got here. It's a great time. Looking forward. Yeah.
Alright, we have a bunch of stuff that we can do, but since Luke, you're a guest today, we're gonna let you pick which match we're gonna go with first.
Right. It's just smashing that into my brain. About like sniper without scope. I think that would be a great fun.
MLG 360 no scope. Let's go.
Yeah!
Alright, so let's get started with the discussion. It's the COVID-19 situation. Alright, so first off, about this situation, you probably already know all the fuss going on about face masks. So let's try and sum it up. So, a lot of different countries have imposed a restriction, either strict or voluntary, that people should be wearing face masks. Now, in those different countries, there are different types of responses we got. And there are some countries that follow the suggestions and the guidelines very well, and some other countries that don't do so as much. Let's use Korea for example. Most of the citizens wear face masks. However, in the US, there are quite a lot of people who refuse to wear masks, saying that it's for freedom to refuse to wear a mask. So what do you guys think about this issue?
In my opinion, Korea is one of the examples that people are rather doing good jobs wearing masks compared to other countries. But there are still people who refuse to wear a mask, and everyone should be wearing masks because, wearing masks is very uncomfortable, and I understand that. But the mask is like the best protection you can have from COVID-19, along with social distance and washing hands. So, I think it's very important for everyone to wear a mask. If one person does not wear a mask and that person gets COVID, a lot of other people get higher risk. So that's my opinion about them wearing masks.
I basically agree with Sean here. So how this disease works is basically disease prevention. Us preventing the spread of the disease works is by having everyone wear masks and reducing the number of contacts people come into each other. And if people not wear masks, if people don't wear masks or do social distancing or not wash their hands or something like that.
To add a little bit here, there are people who tend to not wear the mask when there's no people, but this virus can be also transmitted through air.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to correct this a little bit, because it's technically not exactly spread through air. It's spread through drops of spit that's in the air, and that's how it's able to survive for a while. It's not the virus itself that's in the air. It's in those little droplets.
Oh yeah.
So that's why the masks are supposed to help you with those droplets. And that's why they have these anti-droplet masks that are also supposed to work. But they don't work as well as the N95/the KF94s. Alright, so this is important in that a lot of people during the beginning stages thought that masks were ineffective, but it is, because it is spread through the air through these droplets.
By wearing these masks, we can prevent these droplets from getting into our body and getting ourselves infected. But if we don't wear these masks, there is no way to prevent these droplets from making contact with our body cells. And that's how you make yourself susceptible to infection.
Also, Luke, what do you think about this issue?
Oh well, I take 3 hours of biology class every week, but I think that makes me smart enough to understand that masks are effective for COVID-19 from spreading around a bunch of crowds. And I think the thing I could address about this is that it's like how different countries have had different reaction regarding mask issues. And as Jaewon and all the other people have just mentioned about, Korea is like one of a good example to show that masks are effective from stopping the infection around. And I think one of the most important factor that had encouraged the Koreans to actually wear masks from to everyday lifestyle and all sorts of things is that in most of countries, in especially in East Asia, people are very familiar with this concept of wearing face masks. Even before the COVID-19 situations, it wasn't very hard to go out and on the streets and see someone wearing a face mask, and it even is a part of fashion, I guess. And like those kind of public concept about wearing face masks was one of the important reasons that had affected the early public opinion about wearing masks. You guys would probably know better than me because you're American, I think, if I'm correct.
Well, 34% of our viewers are actually from Indonesia.
Crap. So, in Western countries, it's not a really encourageable thing to go out in the streets with your face covered. It's never a good thing. And I think this kind of public perception about wearing masks was one of the important key factors, and also early government responses. You could just see the US administrations or Boris Johnson over England. At first, they have insisted face masks weren't that effective, but later on, they turned on and said, now
Nope.
face masks are effective. And I think this kind of unnecessary flexibility in terms of governmental stances have given quite a confusion around people whether to wear face masks or not to wear face masks.
So I was about to add something onto what Luke said.
Okay.
In addition to wearing masks being fashion in East Asian countries, especially in Korea, I also think that the MERS infection we had a few years back in 2015 affected this quite a bit because people still remember how it was like back then. People still remember MERS in 2015 was, and they do not want to repeat that memory. So basically, I think that also contributed a bit.
I would actually like to add on to that. It was a great point.
Mhm.
And the one thing I would like to add is it is true. Korea had far more cases and encounters with these pandemics than the US. The US, last time they had a pandemic like this was 100 years ago. It was the Spanish flu. So that could be one of the reasons why. But I would also like to point out that in South Korea, fine dust is a more serious problem. It's a more pronounced problem. Fine dust coming in from the deserts of China or from the industrial districts.
Wait, find this
And
also
cars.
come from desserts? Didn't know that.
Not entirely, but some of the fine dust actually does come from deserts because the way the winds blow, and when there is a desert storm, fine dust levels skyrocket. So there's a positive correlation there. So that
Yeah.
also reduced a lot of the initial negative reactions against the mask. Not to mention that in the US, I've lived in the US, wearing face masks is highly uncommon. Like, people would be sick and they would still not wear masks. I remember someone catching a cold or flu in Korea, they'd wear masks to school. So it's just not as prevalent in the US, which is one of the reasons why it created such an uproar of different types of reactions.
And about how people are reacting towards the government telling people to wear masks. Some people are against that. I've heard from news. And personally, I would say that's a little bit irresponsible because, like I said, once you get COVID, it's not just a matter of your personal safety, it's also a matter of safety for those around you. So basically, once you get COVID, you're very likely to spread the disease to whoever you come into contact with, and therefore it is necessary to wear masks. in order to prevent getting disease and to prevent yourself from spreading disease to others in case you get COVID.
Ah,
That was my point.
so there's probably a little bit of a perception that Trump supporters or conservatives tend to be these people who refuse to wear masks. So I talked to one of my old friends. So he was a Trump supporter back in 2017. So I asked him, what are your views on face masks? He said, interesting question. My view is that the government shouldn't tell people what to do. However, I think that businesses and parks and things like that should get to decide their rules, and most will obviously decide to wear a mask. So debunking myth that conservatives tend to be the type of people that don't wear masks, that's quite untrue. So don't create unnecessary division and conflict. It's
Right.
really unnecessary, and it's only going to cause more problems. Luke mentioned something about the different responses from the government, and so that was our next topic, the different responses. There are three major responses.
Mhm.
There are